The Vatican, with its grandeur and mystery, has long captivated the curiosity of millions worldwide. Beneath its golden domes and silent corridors lie untold stories, secrets that span centuries and have shaped the fate of entire nations. Among these mysteries, one stands out, the figure known as the Grey Pope. This invisible strategist is believed to work behind the scenes of the Church, quietly manipulating the levers of power. Ancient manuscripts and accounts suggest that, at times, this figure crossed paths with another Vatican enigma, the Black Pope, the leader of the Jesuits. With immense global influence, the Black Pope has played a role in shaping conflicts and state decisions. But who exactly is the Grey Pope? Is he just a convenient myth to explain the unexplainable, or a real, powerful figure whose actions have so deeply influenced history that his name is still quietly whispered in the heart of the Vatican today? The Council of Trent and the Rise of the Grey Pope. The year was 1545, and the Catholic Church was facing one of its most tumultuous challenges. The Protestant Reformation had shattered the unity of Christianity across Europe, leading to a fragmentation of the Church's influence. Meanwhile, new intellectual movements began to openly question the papacy's authority and control. In response to this existential threat, the Catholic Church convened the Council of Trent, an assembly intended to reaffirm its doctrines, root out heresy, and halt the spread of Protestantism. Yet, not all pivotal decisions made during this period were taken in the open. Behind the scenes of the Council, operating in the shadows away from the public eye, was a mysterious figure known only as the Voice of the Shadow. The true identity of this individual has remained elusive, but it is widely believed that he played a central and decisive role in many of the most strategic decisions of the Counter-Reformation. Ancient manuscripts discovered within the Vatican's secret archives make mention of this enigmatic figure, describing him as the mastermind behind the creation of the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the infamous list of prohibited books meant to suppress ideas that threatened the Church's control over intellectual and theological thought. More than just an advisor or a typical strategist, the Voice of the Shadow was a man of extraordinary cunning. His talents in diplomacy and political maneuvering were unparalleled. He possessed a unique ability to manipulate alliances, influence key figures, and predict the moves of his adversaries. His decisions not only shaped the future trajectory of the Catholic Church, but also had far-reaching consequences on European geopolitics. How, one might ask, could someone with no known face and no public position hold such power over the fate of Europe? The answer lies in what some historians and scholars refer to as the Grey Pope, a master of the shadows whose influence was felt in every critical decision made during the Council of Trent. While cardinals and theologians openly debated doctrinal matters, the Grey Pope was said to be working tirelessly behind the scenes, pulling the strings of power and guiding the Church's responses to the Protestant threat. Ciphered letters from the period suggest that the Grey Pope was the true architect of the political alliances that secured crucial support from Catholic monarchs, such as Emperor Charles V, at a time when the Church's influence seemed to be on the verge of collapse. In these letters, his influence was described as invisible yet absolute, showing that his role was not just political but also highly strategic in preserving the Church's hegemony. The Grey Pope's influence extended far beyond politics. It is believed that he also coordinated the creation of an invisible tribunal, a secret body tasked with monitoring and punishing those who were considered a threat to the unity of the Catholic faith. This tribunal, though never officially recognized or acknowledged by the Church, is mentioned in the correspondence of various cardinals from the time. In these letters, it is referred to as the Shield of the Doctrines, a shadowy force that quietly suppressed dissent and ensured conformity within the Catholic Church. But what was the ultimate purpose of the Grey Pope? Was he merely a protector of the faith, defending the Church against external and internal threats? Or was he, as some have suggested, a political manipulator? Someone who used the power of the Church for his own ends? A deeper analysis reveals that the Grey Pope was both a protector and a manipulator. For him, the survival of the Church was paramount, even if it meant bending moral and doctrinal principles to achieve that end. His weapons were fear, persuasion, and diplomacy, and he wielded them with precision. His singular goal was to preserve the absolute power of the Church, regardless of the cost. One of the most telling examples of his manipulation was his role in shaping the Church's approach to the Protestant threat. While reformers like Martin Luther were challenging the authority of the Pope and questioning the Church's practices, the Grey Pope orchestrated a response that was as much about maintaining power as it was about defending doctrine. Under his guidance, the Council of Trent reaffirmed the Church's traditional teachings, but also established an inquisition that sought to silence heretics and reformers alike. His decisions during this time would go on to shape the course of European history for centuries to come. The Church, under the influence of the Grey Pope, would remain a dominant force in European politics, successfully countering the spread of Protestantism in many parts of the continent. And yet, the question remains, who was the man behind the shadows? His name, though unknown, is whispered still in the corridors of the Vatican, a reminder of a figure whose influence on the Church in Europe was as profound as it was secretive. The Guardian of Shadows and the Vatican's Secret Archives. At the heart of the Vatican lies a place shrouded in mystery and inaccessible to most, the Archivum Secretum Apostolicum Vaticanum, or the Vatican's Secret Archives. This site is not merely a collection of documents, it is a fortress of secrets, stretching across centuries of history. Within its vaults lie papal correspondences, records of heresies, political treaties, and, according to speculation, manuscripts that could rewrite the history of humanity. Among the most persistent rumors surrounding the archives is the role of the Grey Pope, a figure said to be one of the invisible guardians of these secrets. Manuscripts unearthed by researchers in the 20th century, before being swiftly confiscated by the Vatican, suggest that the Grey Pope had full access to these documents and controlled the flow of information, ensuring that only material beneficial to the Church was brought to light. It was within this environment of control and secrecy that the Grey Pope's influence grew, especially during the 16th and 17th centuries. Many believe that he used the information contained in the archives to manipulate diplomatic negotiations, dismantle conspiracies, and neutralize any threats to the Church's power. In a letter from 1774, attributed to a cardinal close to Pope Clement XIV, there are direct mentions of an invisible strategist who disrupted the Illuminati's plans to infiltrate the Church. The Grey Pope's influence was not merely administrative, it was profoundly strategic. He understood that information was the greatest power one could wield. With access to the secrets of kings, political treaties, and the records of major heresies, he became an unassailable force. What makes this so fascinating is how the Grey Pope managed to remain completely in the shadows, even during global crises and intense internal disputes within the Church. Certain documents within the secret archives have always been the subject of speculation, and many of these documents provide tantalizing clues about the Grey Pope's role in Church history. One such document is the so-called Letter of Clement VIII, which supposedly details the existence of a secret Vatican council composed of high-ranking clergy and strategists. According to various theories, this letter describes the Grey Pope as the coordinator of this council, which was tasked with eliminating threats to the Catholic Church, sometimes even through morally questionable methods. Another frequently cited document is the Codex Vigilius, a medieval manuscript believed to have been removed from circulation during the 18th century. This manuscript reportedly contains detailed accounts of the behind-the-scenes events of the Great Western Schism, including the mysterious interference of a figure many scholars believe to be the precursor to the Grey Pope. Although this document is referenced in letters from cardinals of the time, its existence has never been definitively confirmed, further fueling speculation and intrigue. The Grey Pope's ability to remain hidden while shaping the course of history is what sets him apart from other historical figures. His actions were not recorded in official Church documents, but rather in whispered accounts and cryptic references in letters, manuscripts, and other hidden records. This level of secrecy surrounding the Grey Pope raises the question: how was it possible for one individual to wield so much power without ever revealing their true identity to the public? The idea of the Grey Pope challenges our conventional understanding of power within the Church and in history. While most political and religious figures leave behind a trail of documents, speeches, and public actions, the Grey Pope's influence was quietly exercised behind the scenes, out of sight from the Church's followers and the world at large. His decisions shaped the trajectory of European geopolitics and the course of religious history without ever being formally acknowledged by those in power. Many historians speculate that the Grey Pope was not only a master of information, but also a master of manipulation. By controlling the flow of knowledge, he could influence the decisions of kings, emperors, and popes alike. He could prevent the spread of heretical ideas, suppress challenges to the Church's authority, and eliminate those who sought to undermine its influence. His power was absolute, but it was also cloaked in secrecy, allowing him to operate with impunity. What is perhaps most intriguing is the possibility that the Grey Pope's influence did not end in the 17th century. Some believe that his legacy persisted into the modern era, with his strategies being carried out by later church figures operating in the shadows. It is said that his tactics continue to shape the way the Vatican deals with threats to its power, maintaining an invisible presence that remains just beyond the reach of public knowledge. The Vatican's secret archives remain one of the most enigmatic and inaccessible places in the world. While the Church has allowed limited access to certain documents over the years, much of the material within the archives remains locked away, protected from public scrutiny. For centuries, these documents have contained the secrets of the Church's true influence, and it is likely that they will continue to hold untold revelations for many years to come. As the mystery of the Grey Pope continues to captivate the imagination of historians, researchers, and conspiracy theorists, it raises important questions about the nature of power, secrecy, and control. How much influence can one person wield without ever being seen? And how many of history's most significant events have been shaped by unseen hands, operating in the shadows of institutions that shape the world? The story of the Grey Pope may never be fully understood, but it is certain that his legacy continues to influence the course of history, hidden within the walls of the Vatican and the depths of its secret archives. The Second World War and the power game of the Grey Pope. During World War II, the Vatican officially declared its neutrality, but behind this public stance was a covert network of operations that influenced the course of historical events. At the center of this network, according to later accounts and documents, was the mysterious figure known as the Grey Pope, acting as a strategist who carefully balanced the Axis and Allied forces to ensure the Church's survival. While Pope Pius XII faced widespread criticism for his silence on Nazi atrocities, the Grey Pope is believed to have orchestrated a series of secret operations to protect lives and preserve the Church's assets. Monasteries and churches across Europe were transformed into havens for persecuted Jews, and secret passages within the Vatican were used to hide entire families. Testimonies from Allied soldiers suggest that agents linked to the Vatican transported refugees to safe locations, often at great risk of discovery by Nazi troops. The Grey Pope's role in these efforts was central, as he carefully coordinated these humanitarian operations while maintaining a delicate political neutrality. However, the Grey Pope's actions extended far beyond humanitarian aid. He understood that protecting the Church also meant safeguarding its treasures and relics. During the bombings of Rome, historical manuscripts, artworks, and religious artifacts were moved to secret hiding places, some of which have never been publicly seen again. These actions have fueled numerous theories about the true scope of the operations carried out during the war and the current whereabouts of these precious items. There are also accounts suggesting that the Grey Pope established direct lines of communication with leaders such as Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt. This diplomatic network was designed to maintain a careful balance between the warring forces, ensuring that the Vatican was spared from direct attacks. The Vatican, under the Grey Pope's influence, remained a neutral party, but its survival during this turbulent period relied on subtle diplomacy and strategic decision-making. In one of the most controversial operations, unverified documents suggest that the Grey Pope even negotiated with Nazi officials to protect certain monasteries in exchange for providing strategic information about the Allies. An intriguing example of this was Operation E, the famous rescue of Benito Mussolini by Nazi troops in 1943. According to speculation, the Grey Pope had been forewarned about this operation and used his knowledge to secure the protection of churches in occupied Italian territory. Although no concrete evidence exists, this story is often cited as an example of the pragmatic approach that guided his actions, balancing moral choices with the Church's survival. Another fascinating case involves the transfer of Vatican wealth to Switzerland during the war. Unverified reports mention trains loaded with gold, manuscripts, and artworks leaving Rome under Vatican protection. It is believed that the Grey Pope orchestrated this operation to ensure that the Church's treasures remained safe, even in the face of a potential Nazi invasion. The transfer was carried out with utmost secrecy, and some believe the treasures may still be hidden in undisclosed locations. Beyond his diplomatic skills and covert operations, the Grey Pope also relied on the Society of Jesus, or the Jesuits, who were led by the Black Pope during this time. The Jesuits played a pivotal role in maintaining the Church's influence across Europe, particularly in territories occupied by the Nazis. The Jesuit network helped to facilitate the safe passage of refugees, smuggle documents, and act as intermediaries between the Vatican and various governments. The relationship between the Grey Pope and the Black Pope, both powerful figures operating in the shadows, was crucial in navigating the complexities of the war and the Vatican's involvement in global affairs. While much of the Grey Pope's activities remain shrouded in secrecy, it is clear that his strategic thinking and ability to navigate the geopolitical landscape helped the Vatican survive the war. His actions, though often morally ambiguous, were motivated by a singular objective: the preservation of the Church's power and influence. In doing so, he ensured that the Vatican would emerge from the war intact, even as Europe was ravaged by conflict. Today, the Grey Pope remains a figure of fascination and intrigue, and his story continues to fuel speculation and conspiracy theories. Though many details of his operations have never been confirmed, the legend of the Grey Pope endures, a symbol of power, secrecy, and survival in the face of global upheaval. His role during World War II may never be fully understood, but it is certain that his actions had a profound impact on the Vatican's ability to navigate one of the most dangerous and turbulent periods in modern history. The link with the Society of Jesus and the role of the Black Pope. The Society of Jesus, known as the Jesuits, is one of the most influential orders within the Catholic Church, with a long history of dedication to education, missions, and, above all, strategy. Since its founding in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola, the Jesuits have expanded their global presence, infiltrating royal courts, noble houses, and universities. At the center of this complex network is the Superior General, commonly referred to as the Black Pope, not only because of the color of his cassock, but also due to the immense power and far-reaching influence he held within the Church. The relationship between the Grey Pope and the Black Pope has always been characterized by a blend of collaboration and tension. Documents discovered in the Vatican's secret archives suggest that, at many critical moments, the two worked together to strengthen the Church's position. While the Grey Pope operated from the shadows, making strategic decisions within the Vatican, the Black Pope leveraged the global resources of the Jesuit order to execute those decisions in the field. During the Counter-Reformation, this partnership was crucial in combating the spread of Protestantism. While the Grey Pope engineered political alliances, the Black Pope mobilized Jesuit missionaries and educators to reclaim territories that had fallen to Protestantism. A notable example of this was the Jesuits' work in regions such as Bohemia and Poland, where they succeeded in converting thousands of Protestants back to Catholicism. Their efforts were part of a broader campaign to reassert Catholic control over Europe, and they helped stem the tide of Protestant influence in these regions. However, this collaboration began to show cracks in the 17th century. The growing power of the Jesuits, bolstered by their financial independence and global reach, began to concern the Grey Pope. He feared that the Society of Jesus could become a threat to the centralized authority of the Vatican itself. As the Jesuits gained influence, the Grey Pope took measures to curtail their autonomy, such as requiring direct reports from the Jesuits to himself, effectively bypassing the Black Pope in certain instances. One of the most symbolic events reflecting this tension was the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, a devastating conflict that intertwined religion and politics across Europe. During the war, the Jesuits served as diplomats and advisors in various European courts, often acting on orders from the Grey Pope. However, the increasing autonomy of the Jesuits led to internal friction, with reports suggesting that the Grey Pope occasionally overruled certain Jesuit missions. The Jesuits' role in the war further exemplified their growing independence, as they were no longer solely executing the directives of the Vatican, but were also acting in their own interests, sometimes in ways that conflicted with the central authority of the Church. The peak of this rivalry came in 1773, when Pope Clement XIV, under pressure from European monarchs, decreed the suppression of the Society of Jesus. Although the official justification for this action was the influence of kings such as Charles III of Spain, theories suggest that the Grey Pope played a crucial role in supporting this decision. His motivations are believed to have been rooted in a desire to neutralize what he perceived as an internal threat to the power of the Vatican. Despite the public reasoning that the Jesuits were too powerful and a destabilizing force in Europe, many speculate that the Grey Pope, with his strategic mind and deep understanding of church politics, saw the Jesuits as a rival faction within the Church. By supporting their suppression, the Grey Pope aimed to reassert the Vatican's authority and preserve its control over the Catholic world. Even after the suppression of the Jesuits, their influence and role within the Church did not vanish entirely. The order was officially dissolved, but the Grey Pope's actions had set the stage for a new phase in the Vatican's power structure. Although the Jesuits were formally disbanded, they re-emerged in the 19th century, eventually regaining their position as one of the most powerful and influential orders within the Church. In many ways, the history of the Grey Pope and the Black Pope is a story of balancing power, strategy, and survival. Both figures, operating from different realms of influence, sought to shape the course of Church history, but their methods and goals often clashed. The Grey Pope's silent and strategic manipulation of power contrasts with the Black Pope's more visible and global reach. Together, they represented two sides of the same coin, both essential to the Church's ability to navigate the complex political and religious landscapes of their time. Today, their legacy lives on in the continued influence of the Jesuits and the mysterious behind-the-scenes role that the Grey Pope is believed to have played in shaping the course of Catholic history. The ongoing intrigue surrounding their relationship highlights the intricate web of alliances, rivalries, and covert operations that have defined the Vatican's role in world history. Despite the passage of time, their influence still resonates in the corridors of power, both within the Church and beyond. The true identity of the Grey Pope. Throughout the centuries, the Vatican has maintained an aura of mystery, but few enigmas are as intriguing as the true identity of the Grey Pope. Unlike the official papal figures listed in the Church's hierarchy, the Grey Pope does not hold any formal title, nor does he appear in the annals of Church history. Yet, accounts and records suggest that his existence is undeniable, especially when examining critical historical events where crucial decisions were made away from the public eye. One of the most widespread theories about the Grey Pope is that he is not a fixed individual, but rather a symbolic mantle passed between Vatican strategists since the 16th century. Figures such as the Voice of the Shadow, mentioned during the Council of Trent, and various cardinals described as invisible protectors, seem to have played similar roles, shaping policies and manipulating events from behind the scenes. This hypothesis finds support in encrypted documents from the 18th century, which reference an inner circle of cardinals with the authority to act independently of the White Pope. These men, according to the documents, did not seek public visibility but exerted decisive influence over the Church's most sensitive decisions. Another intriguing point is the possible connection between the Grey Pope and powerful Italian families, particularly the Orsini and Colonna dynasties. These aristocratic families, deeply rooted in Vatican history, have long been associated with power, politics, and manipulation. Some researchers believe that the Grey Pope could have been a representative of these families, ensuring their interests remained aligned with those of the Church. In this light, the Grey Pope may have served as the liaison between powerful Vatican families and the Church, using his strategic influence to shape decisions that benefited both parties. During World War II, even clearer evidence of the Grey Pope's existence emerged. Unconfirmed reports describe a strategist who allegedly organized clandestine operations to rescue Jews and protect sacred relics. This man, whose identity has never been confirmed, is believed to have been responsible for secret negotiations that ensured the Vatican's neutrality amid the chaos of the war. Though no definitive evidence exists to verify these claims, The idea of a hidden figure orchestrating these operations fits with the pattern of unseen power associated with the Grey Pope. One of the most fascinating theories about the Grey Pope suggests that he is the guardian of the Vatican's secret archives, with access to documents that span over 1,000 years of church history. This would grant him the unique ability to manipulate the Church's official narrative, deciding what information should be revealed and what should remain hidden. Apocryphal Gospels, papal correspondence, and records of heresies would all be among the tools the Grey Pope could use to maintain order and stability within the Church. By controlling these crucial documents, he would hold unparalleled sway over the Church's internal and external narratives. Even more controversial is the theory that the Grey Pope represents not an individual, but a form of collective entity. In this case, he would not be a single person, but rather a network of influences and strategies, operating as a unified force. This theory explains why different historical periods feature similar figures with nearly identical profiles, each taking control during moments of crisis or transition. The role of the Grey Pope, under this hypothesis, would not be limited to one individual's lifetime, but instead, it would span across generations, with successive holders of the mantle taking up the cause as necessary to guide the Church through tumultuous times. Throughout history, the Vatican has always been at the heart of both religious and political power, and the Grey Pope, whether a single individual or a collective entity, is believed to have played an essential role in shaping that power from behind the scenes. His influence, shrouded in secrecy, has been felt in pivotal moments in church history, from the Counter-Reformation to the political maneuverings of the modern era. While his true identity remains elusive, the legacy of the Grey Pope suggests that his power was far greater than that of many who held public office in the Church. The Grey Pope's shadowy influence continued to be a subject of intrigue even in the post-World War II era, as the Vatican worked to rebuild its influence in the modern world. Some theorists speculate that the role of the Grey Pope was revived during the Cold War, when global politics and religious power often intersected in complex ways. Whether the Grey Pope still exists in some form today or is a relic of the past, his impact on the history of the Vatican is undeniable. In the end, the mystery surrounding the Grey Pope serves as a reminder of the complexities of power, both within the Vatican and the broader geopolitical landscape. Whether he was a single man, a symbolic title, or a network of strategists, the Grey Pope's influence was far-reaching and profound, operating in the shadows, shaping the destiny of the Church, and influencing the course of history.